This is Duncan Turner from the Vagina Doctor podcast. Welcome to the Consult With Me segment where we take a deeper look into our most frequently asked questions. But what do I know? I'm just a vagina doctor. We've called the short segments that we do on the podcast Consult With Me. But there are other conversations that go along that I want to call conversations with a vagina doctor. And it really comes from the fact that whenever anybody asks me what I do, what my job is, if I say gynecologist, it either starts a conversation or stops it abruptly. People don't know quite what to say. I think I've heard every joke that people can make about what gynecologists do. And they're old now to me. But it's still amusing to me to see people's reactions.
And more so now with the podcast.
Yes, absolutely, with the podcast. And so,
we're gathering like good content every time we go out. We're like, all right, let's just write this down so we don't forget it.
Right. So we were at dinner
Yes.
a few weeks ago, and because we were put at a table with people we didn't know.
It was like a family style gathering, and we were with another couple, and then they put us with 4 other people we didn't know.
And had we known them beforehand, we wouldn't have had dinner with them, frankly.
No, it was really bad.
Anyway, there was this one guy.
At the end of the table, thank God.
At the end of the table, as far away as he could be from me. And he was just loud and making jokes, and it was funny for sort of 5 minutes, and then he was just irritating the rest of the time. And it seemed like, he was just making jokes that were just unkind. And
yeah, he was trying to get somebody to argue with him is what he was trying to do.
Yeah.
He was challenging everyone at the table to come back with something, and he was an attorney.
Yeah.
Let's face it.
He was an attorney. He was an LA attorney.
Yes.
Recently moved to Santa Barbara.
Yes.
And we wish that hadn't happened.
Right.
I'm very full of himself,
Yes.
as was his wife,
Who was sitting next to me.
who was sitting next to you.
And by the way, this man is the man that gives men a bad name.
I'd have to agree with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Anyway, it was really pretty funny because he was sort of challenging everybody, and I was at the other end of the table and sort of almost immune to that. But then it did come to my turn. What do you do? And I said, I'm a gynecologist. And
No. He moved. He moved next
that's right.
to me.
He came and he changed places with his wife.
Yeah, and suddenly I came back from the bathroom and he's sitting right next to me, and I was like, oh my God, I have to go sit next to this man. And I was super guarded.
Yeah.
And he kept looking at me and asking me questions about what I did, and then he was challenging me about my job and marketing, and then he was chatting about his kids, and then he just was going on and on and on. He wouldn't be quiet. I felt nauseous. I was so triggered by him, how loud he was, how confrontational he was with me. I didn't want him to know a single thing about me. I was just like locked. And then he turned to you and he said, so what do you do?
And I said, I'm a gynecologist. And it shut him up completely.
He didn't just only shut up. He was staring at you when he asked you the question. He turned his head back to face forward because you were to his right. And he put his head down, dropped it for a moment, and then looked back up and asked the person across from him a question.
Yeah. Right.
And I started laughing so hard I had to get up and leave the table because it was just too much.
Yeah, and this is just this one was obnoxious, but I was talking to somebody who was in our Airbnb place up north, and he asked me what I did, and I told him, and he said, secret places.
Yeah.
As though that's funny.
Right. Well, and then it's always like at the guy the other night. Well, of course, we basically fled after that. We left
finished
very quickly.
We didn't stay.
We left our friends. They were like, "Well, what's going on?" Like, but then we had them over the next week, and the four of us discussed how obnoxious and out of line that man was. But anyway, when we were leaving, he said he made some comment to you.
He said you have a lot of gynecological things to do.
Yeah.
As we were going home on a Saturday night. What about the guy when we were in Africa? And he was another attorney, but he wasn't obnoxious. He said something like, when he asked me what I did, and I told him, he said, I don't know what to say to that.
Yeah. I mean, it's always something. I remember years ago, we were at this really like trendy party, and it's always awkward when we see a patient, especially a high profile patient. And this high profile patient was there, and we were talking to her, and the host of the party came up and said, "Oh, how do you two know each other?" Mm-hmm. And you said, "Well, I'll never tell." And I don't think we ever saw that patient again.
No, we didn't.
And my eye just dropped when you did that. I was like, oh my God, I can't. Because she had no comment. I think she like literally bolted.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I've never seen her since.
So it's
but as I say, it either starts the conversation, somebody, or it stops it. If it stops, obviously it stops, and they go on to something else because they're too embarrassed or whatever. I don't think it's ever that they're not interested, but so much of the time, the patient will or the woman, usually men sometimes, will go straight into it,
right,
and ask me some either personal question that they have or they wonder about. Mm-hmm. And then the conversation goes in that direction, and it's just like, okay, I'm doing consultations tonight, I suppose.
Yeah.
But it's quite remarkable how it changes the conversation. And when we had Jen Kennedy on recently, mm-hmm. a sex therapist, she was saying the same thing. It either starts a conversation or it ends it, and they expect treatment right away. So it's fun.
Yeah, it's fun. You never know. I think now though you need to say I'm a vagina doctor.
Yes, I do.
And don't say gynecologist anymore. Just say I'm a vagina doctor.
Yeah, or I'm just a vagina doctor.
I'm just a vagina doctor. And wait, I think you did say that. We were at something at the Montecito Club.
Yes, I did.
And who did you? Oh, you said that to the guy from the gallery testing.
Oh, that's
that we're trying to get on the podcast.
Yeah. He'll be one of our guests, and he wants to come on.
Yeah, but I can't remember what his comeback was.
No. It was appropriate. It was that's straightforward.
Yeah.
Now I know what you do.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
That's
good. It's funny.
We'll bring these. If new ones come up,
they will be coming up. It happens all the time. We just have to remember them.
We'll share it. We'll share these with you. It's really fun.
So another thing I wanted to talk about was I'm watching the reboot, Sex and the City reboot, and Just Like That. And what happened the other day on an episode was really weird, and it's just been bothering me. And I Googled it, and apparently it's bothering a lot of people. But it's that Carrie, the main character, who was in all the seasons of the original Sex and the City and is the biggest part of the show, refused on her podcast to talk about a vaginal product.
Yeah.
And I thought, this just doesn't go with the Sex and the City brand. They were the first to say anything about the vagina on air, and groundbreaking HBO, just always so daring, and all the characters talking about sex all the time and their vaginas and penises and orgasms and everything they could possibly think of to discuss. And now she won't talk about a vaginal product on her podcast, and her podcast gets canceled because of
that.
it. Yeah.
Yeah. Because that was a sponsor.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Right. Just so so contrary to what that show was trying to do all throughout time.
Right. And to her, I think she was like, oh no, I can't. It's almost like she was embarrassed to bring that up, or she felt like she was too young to be having that conversation on air.
Yeah.
But there was something about it whereas slightly almost prudish, like she couldn't, oh no, I can't possibly say that. And then she was going to rewrite it in her own words. And then I was really anxious to see what she came up with, but then the podcast was canceled. So you never knew. And I thought, okay, well, maybe they're going to revisit this throughout the season again, but I don't know. It hasn't come up. And now the podcast is canceled. So
Yeah. Right. Interesting.
yeah. But in like a few episodes later, they talk about the penis pump,
Oh, that's right.
which we have patients using the penis pump
Right.
for erectile dysfunction.
Yeah.
So,
Most people only know a penis pump out of Austin Powers' first movie when it was in his carry-on luggage.
that's great. I don't remember that.
Well, of course, he was denying it was his.
Yeah. Well, so anyway, it bothered me, and I thought it was, and then when I was Googling it, it bothered a lot of people. So there were articles about it.
It was really hypocritical, in my opinion.
Yeah, questioning, the writers and why they chose to go with that storyline, and that as far as we've come, especially right now in 2023, and people talking about issues more.
And that's really what this podcast is all about, talking about these things.
That's true. Yes.
Yeah.
So,
Great. Thanks for that insight of Sex and the City.
yes. And just like that. Thanks for listening. And if you have more questions, please let us know either by email or DM us on the Vagina Doctor podcast.
See you in the next episode. The Vagina Doctor podcast. It all starts here.